Okay, so 7.5 is going to be solving trig functions, or trig equations. And basically, the sky's the limit on what these could be. You're just going to use whatever identities and tools we have available to solve these. So let's first start with something pretty simple. Let's say we have 2 cosine squared of x minus cosine of x equals 0. And we factor this one. If I factor out a cosine of x, I'm left with 2 cosine of x minus 1 equals 0. Using the zero product property, I have this, and I have this. So we can use cosine inverse here to find out that it can be, x can be 90 degrees, or in radians, that's power 2. Okay? If we solve here by adding 1 to both sides, then dividing by 2, then do the cosine inverse again, we find it to be 60 degrees, or power 3. Okay, so that's basically how we're going to solve these things. Now, some of these other ones using factoring, it's a little tricky. What you need to do is you need to think about this guy as if it is a quadratic. So here I have, I have this. Okay, now, you see I have cosine and sine. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract the 7 from both sides, where I have it set equal to 0. Then I'm going to use the Pythagorean identity to change this guy to 1 minus sine squared, which is going to give me 3 plus 3 sine squared x on the front end. And when I combine like terms, I will have 3 sine squared x. I'm getting rid of a negative at the same time. And I'd have plus 4. Okay, now, this, if you imagine it like it is this quadratic where x is equal to sine of x, you can see that we can just solve that by using by factoring it. That guy factors into x minus 2 times 3x minus 2. Well, my x is sine of x, so this is sine of x minus 2 times 3 sine of x minus 2. Okay? So sine of x minus 2 equals 0. 3 sine of x minus 2 equals 0. So we have sine of x equals 2. Okay? I have 3 sine of x equals 2, or sine of x equals 2/3. And then if we use our sine inverse, you would get no solution on this. So we just throw that one out. Okay, if you do it for this guy, we get it to be, depending on if your calculator is in radian mode or degree mode, you get 41.81 degrees, or we most of the time leave it in radian mode, and that will give us 0.7297. Okay? So there's our answers there. Okay, so now let's do sine squared of x equals 1/2 sine of 2x. Now, that sine of 2x is double angle. So if we change that to using its double angle formula, we have 2 sine of x cosine of x. Okay? And then when we multiply by that 1/2, these guys cancel. Subtract that over, so I have sine squared x minus sine x cosine x equals 0. Similarly, on the first problem we did, factor out a sine. Leaves you with sine of x minus cosine of x. And then sine of x equals 0 gives you x equal to 0 using the sine inverse, and then sine of x minus cosine of x equal to 0. That's sine of x equal to cosine of x, and the only place that is true is when x is equal to 45 degrees or pi over 4 radians. Okay, on the next one we're going to have to use a quadratic formula. It's similar to the second example I did. Let's do cosine of 2x equals 4 cosine of x minus 2. Okay? Now, cosine of 2x, you can use a double angle on that, which gives you 2 cosine squared of x minus 1 equals 4 cosine of x minus 2. Okay? Subtract that, all those guys over. We have 2 cosine squared x, subtract 4 cosine x, and then when I add 2 over, it gives me plus 1 equals 0. Now again, treat this like a quadratic of this form. Okay, but now I have x is equal to sine of x. Okay, so we're going to use a quadratic formula with a equal to 2, b equal to -4, and c equal to 1. Okay, but my solution is sine of x equals whatever it's going to be. So it's going to be negative b was -4, plus or minus the square root of b squared, minus 4 times a is 2 and c is 1, all over 2 times a, which is 2. So we have 4 plus or minus 16 minus 8 all over 4, which is 4 plus or minus the square root of 8 over 4, which is 4 plus or minus 2 square roots of 2 over 4, or 1 plus or minus 1/2 square root of 2. And that's what sine of x is. Okay? So I have sine of x is equal to 1 plus the square root of 2 over 2. And I have sine of x is equal to 1 minus the square root of 2 over 2. Okay? If we put that in our calculator using the sine inverse, you get x equal... I made a mistake. This should have been cosine of x. If you go back a couple pages, you probably saw me make the mistake. X was cosine of x here. So that changes this, to cosine. That is cosine. So then over here, you gotta use cosine inverse. So if I evaluate these guys, 1.7, let's see, hold on. This is 1.707107. This one is 0.2928993. Okay, so from here you can see that this guy, since it's greater than 1, we can't take cosine of that. Cosine's always going to be between 0 and, or -1 and 1. So this guy is going to be no answer. If you try to put that in calculator, you'll get where it won't do the domain. The other one, if we put that in, we get x to be approximately 72.969 degrees, or in radians, 1.2735 radians. Okay, I prefer radians. A lot of people are more familiar with degrees, so that's why I did it in degrees, but most of the time you're always going to have your answers in radians. So that's all for chapter 7.